It's pouring rain here in New York today, which honestly matches the absolute stormy mess happening in Port Charles right now. We've got paralyzed WSB agents on living room rugs, Sonny jumping to crazy conclusions with guns drawn, and Dante finally losing his mind over Rocco's cover-up. Let's dive straight into this wild Tuesday, May 12th, update because I have a lot of thoughts, and we need to unpack all of this chaos together. And let me just start by saying that the writers are absolutely unhinged this week, and I kind of love it, but I'm also so incredibly stressed out watching these episodes. You guys know I've been covering the show for years, and sometimes you get these storylines where you just have to sit back and ask yourself, what were they actually thinking? Tuesday's episode is exactly that. We have to talk about the absolute disaster happening over at Willow's house because it is rapidly becoming the most ridiculous and high-stakes hostage situation in Port Charles history. So Nina Reeves, in a moment of pure unadulterated panic, just stuck Drew's paralytic syringe right into Jack Brennan's neck. I mean, let's be real here. Nina didn't want Brennan and Valentin Cassidy's face-off to end in a fatal shooting. They were wrestling over a gun, things were getting incredibly dangerous, and Nina just did the only thing she could think of in that split second. But now we have a highly dangerous WSB field office boss completely paralyzed and locked in on the living room floor. Honestly, the visual of Brennan just dropping like a sack of potatoes, while Valentin and Nina stand there staring at him, is both hilarious and terrifying. Valentin is immediately going to start quizzing Nina about the syringe's contents. He needs to know exactly what was in that needle, how long it lasts, and what the hell they are going to do next. And Nina is going to have to confess that it was Drew's medicine, the weekly dose that keeps Drew locked in his own personal paralysis prison. So now Brennan is going to be stuck like that for at least a week, assuming they don't get him the antidote or medical attention, which we all know they won't because Valentin is a Cassidine, and Cassidines don't call 911. Will Nina tell Valentin everything and just beg for his help stashing Brennan somewhere? Because they can't just leave a federal agent on the rug. Valentin is probably going to have to drag Brennan's heavy, paralyzed body out of there, and there are rumors he might stash him in Carly's attic. Which, okay, Carly having like a tied WSB agent in her attic is so perfectly General Hospital that I can't even be mad at it. But while all this madness is happening in the living room, we have to talk about Drew Kane, because Drew is in the back bedroom, and he has been listening to every single second of this absolute train wreck. And because Nina used his weekly dose on Brennan, Drew is finally, for the first time in months, starting to feel the medicine wear off. The spoilers say Drew will start wiggling his fingers in his bedroom. He's going to seem so incredibly hopeful about finally escaping this nightmare. You guys, Drew has been trapped in his own body, fully aware, just blinking and breathing while his ex-wife and her mother run a criminal enterprise out of the living room. The psychological torture of that is insane. So when he feels that finger move, he is going to think this is it. This is his moment to become a free man again. But let's be entirely realistic for a second. Wiggling your fingers is not the same thing as suddenly being able to stand up, kick the door down, and sprint all the way to the Port Charles Police Department. His muscles have to be severely atrophied by now. It's been a long time since his last injection, sure, but he's still in a wheelchair. He is going to try to move. He is going to try to push himself out of that chair, but it is going to be a massive struggle. And even if he somehow manages to drag himself out of that bedroom, what is his plan? Valentine is standing right out there. Valentine has a gun. Valentine is not just going to let Drew roll out the front door and blow the whistle on this entire kidnapping and drugging operation. Valentine can just point the gun right at Drew's head if need be. The tension in this house is so thick you could cut it with a knife. And then, of course, there is Willow, sweet, innocent kindergarten teacher Willow, who has somehow morphed into a mob-adjacent criminal mastermind. While all this is going down at her house, Willow was actually out for a run in the park. She crosses paths with Harrison Chase. And yes, the spoilers specifically note that Chase will be shirtless on a run of his own. Because, of course, he is. The writers know exactly what they are doing, giving us shirtless Chase in the middle of all this dark, heavy drama. Chase is going to confess to Willow that he was actually hoping she would be there. Now, we know Michael Corinthos is pulling strings in the background, trying to push these two exes together to create a scandal so he can get custody leverage. Michael is being so manipulative right now. It makes my skin crawl. But Chase isn't focused on an affair right now. Chase wants to talk about adopting Phoebe with Brooke Lynn Quartermain. He's going to wonder if Willow could pull some strings or offer some help with the adoption process. And Willow, trying to maintain this facade of a normal, helpful person, might promise to do whatever she can to help him out. She's going to leave Chase feeling incredibly grateful. But honestly, it is so sad watching Chase plan this beautiful family future with Brooke Lynn, completely unaware that Brooke Lynn is secretly consumed by guilt because she is the one who hit the guardrail and kept driving, leaving Isaiah Gannon to face the charges. Everyone in this town is keeping a massive, life-ruining secret right now. It is genuinely exhausting to keep track of who is lying to who. So Willow finishes her nice, normal chat with Chase, and then she heads back home. And oh boy, she has much bigger issues waiting for her. She's going to walk through the front door, and Nina is going to have quite a story to tell. Imagine coming home from a jog, wiping the sweat off your forehead, and your mother is just standing there like, "Hey, sweetie, so funny story. I accidentally chemically paralyzed Jack Brennan, and Valentin had to drag his body away." Willow is going to face stunning news. She's going to get a massive warning about how fast the situation is escalating. And here is the part that really makes me question everything about Willow's character development lately. The spoilers hint that after Willow returns and sees Drew trying to escape, she might actually be the one to put a stop to it. She might give him another paralytic dose herself. If Willow actually takes a syringe and injects Drew to keep him paralyzed, there is no coming back from that. That is crossing a moral event horizon. She's no longer just a passive participant. She is an active torturer. Maybe I'm being too harsh on her. Maybe she feels backed into a corner, but wow, that is a dark turn for her character. Okay, let's take a breath and shift gears entirely because we have to talk about Dante and Lulu. This storyline has been brewing for weeks and the explosion is finally here. Dante shows up at Spencer's house and he is not there for a friendly co-parenting chat. He is furious. He catches Lulu completely off guard when he walks in and just flat out admits that he knows the truth. He knows Rocco Falconry pulled the trigger on Ross Cannon. Dante is a police detective, but more importantly, he is a father. And finding out that his own son shot a WSB boss in the back, and that his ex-wife has been covering it up, is pushing him right to the edge. Lulu is going to panic. She's going to start grilling Dante, demanding to know what evidence might have surfaced. She wants to know how he figured it out, and Dante is going to lay it all out for her. He's going to share the clues that he put together with Elizabeth Baldwin's help. Remember, Elizabeth is the one who noticed the slide burn on Rocco's hand. A slide burn that only comes from firing a weapon, not from slipping on a dock like Lulu claimed. Dante's going to throw this right in Lulu's face. He might even admit that Liz cared enough to tell him the truth about his own son, unlike Lulu. That is going to sting. Dante using Elizabeth's honesty as a weapon against Lulu's deception is such a classic soap opera move. But it hurts because it's true. Lulu has been lying to his face for weeks. And then, because Lulu is backed into a corner and panicking, she is going to start deflecting blame. At some point during this massive argument, Lulu will admit that Nathan West, who we all know is actually Cashies, was in on the cover-up. She's going to tell Dante that Cashies encouraged her to hide the truth. Her excuse is going to be that because of Dante's status as the police commissioner, telling him would force him to arrest his own son. Which, okay, legally she has a point, but morally, you don't hide something like this from the kid's father, especially when the fake Nathan West is involved. Dante is going to direct his immense fury right at Cashies next. We know Cashies is currently holding Jocelyn Jacks hostage over at Windermere. So, Dante going after Cashies is going to collide with that storyline in a huge way. I just hope Dante gets to Rocco first and actually hears his son's side of the story before things get even more violent. Now, speaking of violent overreactions, let's talk about Sonny Corinthos. Sonny is currently acting like a paranoid mobster from 1998, and it is honestly a bit ridiculous. Based on some incredibly vague intel from Ethan Lovett, Sonny has convinced himself that Rick Lansing is a traitor who is secretly trying to destroy him. So, what does Sonny do? He takes extreme measures. Ethan Lovett actually forces Ava Jerome into a car with him. Ava is just minding her own business, counting money in an envelope at her art gallery. And suddenly, Ethan is kidnapping her. She is going to be terrified, wondering what his plans are. And Ethan may just coldly admit that her fate is entirely up to Sunny after he finishes dealing with Rick inside the gallery. So, inside the Jerome Art Gallery, we have Sunny Corinthos literally holding Rick Lansing at gunpoint over an art deal. Sunny's standing there with a weapon demanding answers. And Rick is going to realize very quickly that he'd better explain himself or else his life could actually be on the line. Sunny does not play around when he thinks he's been betrayed. But here is the absolute kicker, and the reason why Sunny is going to look so incredibly stupid by the end of this episode. Rick actually has a perfectly decent excuse for his shady dealings with Ava. He hasn't been plotting against Sunny. He hasn't been trying to take down the organization. Rick has actually been buying some sort of hush-hush art gift for Elizabeth Baldwin. Yes, you heard that right. All of this gun-pointing kidnapping, extreme mob behavior is over a surprise present for Liz. Rick and Ava were just keeping it a secret so they wouldn't ruin the surprise. When Rick finally spits this out, Sunny is going to feel like an absolute idiot. He's going to realize that things aren't sinister in the end. But honestly, who actually believes Sunny's going to apologize? He's just going to put the gun away and act like he was justified in checking. GH spoilers also say Elizabeth will solve another puzzle on Monday's episode. Now, that could involve more of the column-related detective work since she just helped Dante, but it's also very possible Liz will eventually get tangled up in this ridiculous Rick and Sunny drama. Imagine Liz finding out that her ex-husband almost got executed by a mob boss over a painting. Only in Port Charles, you guys. Only in Port Charles. Finally, we need to wrap up by talking about Carly and Charlotte Cassadine. Carly is currently sitting in her kitchen stressed out of her mind. She's already panicking because Trina told her Jocelyn is missing. And Carly falsely assumes Jack Brennan used his WSB connections to send Jocelyn away. Little does she know Jocelyn is actually tied up at Windermere by Cassius. But while Carly is waiting for Valentin come back with the strategy, Charlotte is going to stop by. Charlotte is hopping to see her father.